Chapter 8 of Stepping Heavenward by Elizabeth Prentice. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Stepping Heavenward by Elizabeth Prentice. Chapter 8. June 28. Mother writes me that Dr. Cabot is out of danger, Dr. Elliot having thrown new light on his case, and performed some sort of an operation that relieved him at once. I am going home. Nothing would tempt me to encounter those black eyes again. Besides, the weather is growing warm, and Auntie is getting ready to go out of town with the children. June 29th. Auntie insisted on knowing why I was hurrying home so suddenly, and at last got it out of me inch by inch. On the whole, it was a relief to have someone to speak to. "Well," she said, and leaned back in her chair in a fit of musing. "Is that all you were going to say, Auntie?" I ventured to ask at last. "No, I have one more remark to add," she said, "and it is this. I don't know which of you has behaved most ridiculously. It would relieve me to give you each a good shaking." "I think Dr. Elliot has behaved ridiculously," I said, "and he has made me most unhappy." "Unhappy?" she repeated. "I don't wonder you are unhappy. You have pained and wounded one of the noblest men that walks the earth. It is not my fault. I never tried to make him like me." "Yes, you did. You were perfectly bewitching whenever he came here. No mortal man could help being fascinated." I knew this was not true, and bitterly resented Auntie's injustice. "If I wanted to fascinate or bewitch a man," I cried, "I should not choose one old enough to be my father, nor one who was as uninteresting, awkward, and stiff as Dr. Elliot. Besides, how should I know he was not married? If I thought anything about it at all, I certainly thought of him as a middle-aged man settled down with a wife long ago. In the first place, he is not old, or even middle-aged. He is not more than 27 or 8. As to his being uninteresting, perhaps he is to you, who don't know him. And if he were a married man, what business had he come here to see you as he has done? I did not know he came to see me. He never spoke to me, and I always said I would never marry a doctor." "We all say scores of things we live to repent," she replied. "But I must own that the doctor acted quite out of character when he expected you to take a fancy to him on such short notice, you romantic little thing. Of course, knowing him as little as you do, and only seeing him in sick rooms, you could not have done otherwise than as you did." "Thank you, Auntie," I said, running and throwing my arms around her. "Thank you with all my heart. And now, won't you take back what you said about my trying to fascinate him?" "I suppose I must, you dear child," she said. "I was not half in earnest. The truth is, I am so fond of you both that the idea of your misunderstanding each other annoys me extremely. Why, you were made for each other. He would tone you down and keep you straight, and you would stimulate him and keep him awake." "I don't want to be toned down or kept straight," I remonstrated. "I hate prigs who keep their wives in leading strings. I do not mean to marry anyone, but if I should be left to such a piece of folly, it must be to one who will take me for better, for worse, just as I am, and not as a wild plant for him to prune till he has got it into a shape to suit him. Now, Auntie, promise me one thing. Never mention Dr. Elliot's name to me again." "I shall make no such promise," she replied, laughing. "I like him, and I like to talk about him, and the more you hate and despise him, the more I shall love and admire him. I only wish my Lucy were old enough to be his wife, and that he could fancy her, but he never could." "On the contrary, I should think that little model of propriety would just suit him," I exclaimed. "Don't make fun of Lucy," Auntie said, shaking her head. "She is a dear good child after all." "After all" means this, for what with my own observation, and what Auntie had told me, Lucy's portrait is easy to paint. The child is the daughter of a man who died from a lingering illness caused by an accident. She entered the family at a most inauspicious moment, 2 days after this accident. From the outset she comprehended the situation and took the ground of a character of irreproachable dignity and propriety became an infant coming at such a time. She never cried, never put improper objects into her mouth, never bumped her head or scratched herself. Once put to bed at night, you knew nothing more of her till such time next day as you found it convenient to attend to her. If you forgot her existence, as was not seldom the case under the circumstances, she vegetated on unmoved. It is possible that pangs of hunger sometimes assailed her, and it is a fact that she teethed, had the measles, and the whooping cough. But these minute ripples on her infant life only showed the more clearly what a waveless, placid little sea it was. She got her teeth in the order laid down in Dewey's on children. Her measles came out on the appointed day, like well-behaved measles as they were, and retired decently and in order, as measles should. Her whooping cough had a well-bred, methodical air, and left her a conqueror of the field. As the child passed out of her babyhood, she remained still her mother's appendage in glory, a monument of pure white marble, displaying to the human race one instance at least of perfect parental training. Those smooth, round hands were always magically clean, the dress immaculate and uncrumpled, the hair dutifully shining and tidy. She was a model child, as she had been a model baby. No slamming of doors, no litter of carpets, no pattering of noisy feet on the stairs. No headless dolls, no soiled or torn books indicated her presence. Her dolls were subject to a methodical training not unlike her own. They rose, they were dressed, they took the air, they retired for the night, with clock-like regularity. At the advanced age of 8, she ceased occupying herself with such trifles, and began a course of instructive reading. Her lessons were received in mute submission, like medicine, so many doses so many times a day. An agreeable interlude of needlework was afforded, and Dorcas-like, many were the garments that resulted for the poor. Give her the very eyes out of your head, cut off your right hand for her if you choose, but don't expect a gush of enthusiasm that would crumple your collar. She would as soon strangle herself as run headlong to embrace you. If she had any passions or emotions, they were kept under. But who asks for passion in a blancmange, or seeks emotion in a comfortable apple pudding? When her father had been dead a year, her mother married a man with a large family of children and a very small purse. Lucy had a hard time of it, especially as her stepfather, a quick, impulsive man, took a dislike to her. Auntie had no difficulty persuading them to give the child to her. She took from the purest motives, and it does seem as if she ought to have more reward than she gets. She declares, however, that she has all the reward she could ask in the conviction that God accepts this attempt to please him. Lucy is now nearly 14, very large of her age, with a dead white skin, pale blue eyes, and a little light hair. To hear her talk is most edifying. Her babies are all babes. She never begins anything, but commences it. She never cries, she weeps. Never gets up in the morning, but rises. But what am I writing all this for? Why, to escape my own thoughts, which are anything but agreeable companions, and to put off answering the question which must be answered. Have I really made a mistake in refusing Dr. Elliot? Could I not in time have come to love a man who has so honored me? July 5th. Here I am again, safely at home, and very pleasant it seems to be with dear mother again. I have told her about Dr. E. She says very little about it one way or the other. July 10th. Mother sees that I am restless and out of sorts. What is it, dear? She asked this morning. Has Dr. Elliot anything to do with the unsettled state you are in? Why, no, mother, I answered. My going away has broken up all my habits, that's all. Still, if I knew Dr. Elliot did not care much, and was beginning to forget it, I dare say I should feel better. If you were perfectly sure that you could never return his affection, she said, you were quite right in telling him so at once. But if you had any misgivings on the subject, it would have been better to wait, and to ask God to direct you. Yes, it would, but at the moment I had no misgivings. In my usual headlong style, I settled one of the most weighty questions of my life, without reflection, without so much as one silent appeal to God to tell me how to act. And now I have forever repelled and thrown away a heart that truly loved me. He will go his way, and I shall go mine. He never will know what I am only just beginning to know myself, that I yearn after his love with unutterable yearning. I am not going to sit down in sentimental despondency to weep over this irreparable past. No human being could forgive such folly as mine, but God can. In my sorrowfulness and loneliness I fly to him, and find, what is better than earthly felicity, the sweetest peace. He allowed me to bring upon myself in one hasty moment a shadow out of which I shall not soon pass. But he pities and he forgives me, and I have had many precious moments when I could say sincerely and joyfully, Whom have I in heaven but thee, and there is none upon earth that I desire besides thee. With a character still so undisciplined as mine, I seriously doubt whether I could have made him happy who has honored me with his unmerited affection. Sometimes I think I am as impetuous and as quick-tempered as ever. I get